way to engage, I think, is to allow your heart to be touched. And it's not going to be by every issue. It might be homelessness, it might be hunger of children, it might be a particular cancer or something that you want to say, you know what, I want to do something about that in the world. I may be small, I may not be a bazillionaire, but I can do something. Whatever moves your heart, whatever your issue is, children or pets or, disease or the climate crisis, my goodness, it's everybody's problem. If you take some action, no matter how small or how great, you will feel empowered and you will be making a difference.
Welcome to the Warriors at Work show. This is Jeannie Coomber, your guide and host. This is a show for men and women in the workplace who want to move from the predictable to the potent. This is your weekly dose of inspiration with an edge. I talk with CEOs and shamans, sports marketing executives and therapists. All of us are like-minded thinkers and doers who tell stories, share wisdom, and challenge each other to have the best life possible inside and outside the office. Welcome to your Warrior Conversation.
Hey everybody, it's Jeannie. I am so humbled and excited to bring to you one of the most powerful and important interviews I have ever had the privilege of hosting. I'm going to take you on a leadership journey like you have not seen before with someone that you've probably not had exposure to, Sister Marilyn Lacey, who is the founder of a 15-year-old nonprofit, Mercy Beyond Borders. Their mission is to forge ways for women and girls in extreme poverty. When I say extreme poverty, I mean places like South Sudan and Haiti to learn, connect, and lead. The organization's vision is to create a world in which all women are educated, connected, and influential. Marilyn tells us some of the most compelling stories I think I've ever heard. Heartwarming stories, incredible results this organization is having. But she does it with a lot of humor, a lot of humility, and a tremendous amount of strength and heart. So many of the attributes that we all talk about from a leadership perspective, she naturally embodies. This conversation is just so inspiring and her work is so important. And I'm thrilled to bring it to you. Marilyn, thank you so much for joining me in this conversation today and sharing your incredible story, so much wisdom and gifts that you're putting out into the world. I feel really, really grateful for you to be here.
It's wonderful to have a chance to be with your audience and your community.
You've had such an extraordinary life, and I extracted something from your website that I thought really embodied a lot of the things that I picked up from you when we first spoke, which was you chose to forge ways for women and girls in extreme poverty to learn, connect, and lead. Your organization is now 15 years old. You're in 5 countries, and you go to places like South Sudan and Haiti, just to name a few. And you have chosen to do this work in the world. And I think we need to start first by having you share with us your story and why you chose to be in this space doing this work on a daily basis.
Well, how long have we got? I am having an amazing life.
Yeah.
And I think it probably differs from what most people in the U.S. think of nuns' lives being. I have had the great privilege, really, of being part of an empowering community of women, which is the convent that I joined, the Sisters of Mercy, who are all themselves well-educated women who've held positions of leadership, who've built hospitals, who've been CEOs of institutions. And so having been in the convent for decades, I had so many mentors and role models and people who helped me when I hit a glitch when I first moved into leadership positions. So there's an built-in support network that is pretty phenomenal. And I've benefited immensely from that. But personally, I think about the randomness of our birth, right? Why was I born into a comfortable, loving family in a country that was in the time at peace, had a wonderful education, had a chance to travel, am in good health? I mean, those blessings should not be taken for granted, right? And then when you have the chance to confront or meet people who have none of those, just by the randomness of their birth into extreme poverty or ill health or oppression of females in the country where they were born, the cultures that dismiss them or marginate them, there was something always in me that gravitated toward a sharing of what I've received, to be with those who had certainly giftedness and talent and beauty and all of that, but none of the social and economic benefits and educational benefits that I have had. I think of it as like water always finds its own length, its own level. And if the water's higher here, pretty soon it's going to be evened out everywhere. That's the vision I have for the world, So we all have gifts to share, and yet we cling to what we have more often than we open our hands, right? And so I guess my life has been about being so impressed by the people, the impoverished people that I've met, that I've wanted freely to devote my life to evening it out in any way that I can. Connecting people who have resources with the nonprofit I'm running so that we can use those resources to lift up women and girls who are in really difficult, dangerous, depressing situations, places like Haiti and South Sudan that don't get in the U.S. news very often, but live in really, really oppressive situations. So my story, I think, is just one of being pulled into the giftedness of those relationships and inviting others into it.
You were drawn to the beauty, and you use words like resilience and tenderness, which are not, resilience is definitely a word we hear a lot in particularly post-COVID environment, but the word tenderness is not something that you hear. And I think it's also really important how you say you want all of the rivers to run and all be connected and have more equality and availability. And I want to break down some of the things that you shared with me to prepare for this interview that I think really speak to how special you are and this work in the world.
Well, let me stop you there. I'm not special except the fact that I've had these experiences, right? And I think most people don't have these experiences because we fear what is other, right?
That is true.
So, we tell our children not to talk to strangers. We wish to be safe, right? And I forget who it was that said that the only place you can really be safe is in a coffin.
Oh gosh.
And that sounds bizarre, but it is really true. If you're going to live life to the full, you've got to drop all your, armor and engage with people. And I know that there are threats out there, and I know the world is dangerous. And I have faced down guys with AK-47s who are, drunk and unreliable and things like that. But honestly, for the most part, people are not threats. People bring blessings into your life. And I don't know how to reverse that thinking in America that, if we could just isolate ourselves, we would be safe. That's not true. So
right.
Anyway, I kind of live without the fear gene, except for spiders. And so as a result, I've engaged with lots of different cultures and different peoples and different experiences, and it's brought me a lot of joy. So I don't think that makes me special. It just makes me blessed,
You shared so many incredible experiences with me when we were preparing for this conversation, and you made a comment that really hit me. And it still sits with me as women are worth less than cows. And that
Yes.
comment, plus some just incredible stories of courage and bravery and perseverance. You are in the middle of
Mhm.
extraordinary places in the world, things that we here in the US have no understanding or relationship to. So it's
Right.
even difficult to hear, let alone get into action to support. So
Yes.
tell us about that journey. So you're doing this incredible work. How do you go from educating someone to moving them to action?
Well, I think there's lots of different ways because we're all unique, but I would say in general, we are deluged with information and news about trouble, right, around the world, because that's what sells in the cable news networks and all of that is conflict and friction and panic and terrorism and all of that. So we're kind of inundated with a lot of that, and it can be paralyzing, right? You can just watch 5 minutes of the nightly news and say, I can't take this anymore. And you turn it off and you put on a comedy, right? I've done that myself. But the way to engage, I think, is to allow your heart to be touched. And it's not going to be by every issue. It might be homelessness. It might be hunger of children. It might be a particular cancer or something that you want to say, you know what? I want to do something about that in the world.
Mm.
I may be small. I may not be a bazillionaire, but I can do something. And that decision to do something is very energizing. The paralysis will disappear. Yeah, you could say cancer. Who can do anything about cancer? It's in every family. It's everywhere. We're doomed. Or you can say, I'm going to volunteer at such and such an agency that's doing something for patients or for research or for whatever. Or I'm going to write a check if I can. Or I'm going to skip a few lattes this week and write that check, to cure cancer. So whatever moves your heart, whatever your issue is, children or pets or, disease or the climate crisis, my goodness, that's everybody's problem. If you take some action, no matter how small or how great, you will feel empowered and you will be making a difference. And then you'll be able to watch the news about that because it's moving in the right direction, right?
So,
So I say that to everybody. We, especially U.S. citizens, we have power.
yeah.
We have power we don't use. We don't use it at the ballot box effectively. We don't use it by talking to our elected officials. There's so many ways we just focus on building a kind of a comfortable existence for ourselves and people we love, thinking that will keep us safe. And it can't. It
Right.
can't, because we're all connected, the butterfly effect and all of that. But we also know it spiritually, that we are connected to one another. And so we all need to be caring at an action level
Mm.
for not
I
only for people near, but people far, because they're really not far. We are one small planet.
Yes, very interconnected. And I would love for you to share, obviously you do so many incredible things, you and your team with this organization. Share with us what's the story that you think really depicts the mission and the positive impact that you're having.
Hmm. It's hard to pick. There are so many,
I
but I
know.
think right now, of course, our mission is to work only with females, women and girls, and only in places of extreme poverty. So by definition of what we've chosen to do in the world, we are in really tragic places, places where women have very hard time accessing education and then staying in school, avoiding forced marriages, human trafficking, making a living. People who are living on less than $2 a day, and most of them less than $1 a day in the places we work. So everything we do is uphill. It's not like we just, I can say to you, Jeannie, we've decided you have a lot of potential. We're giving you a scholarship and you can go to high school for free and college for free on us. And you're going to learn leadership skills along the way. We're going to talk to you every month. We're going to visit your home, get to know your situation. We're going to be there for you. It's not like it is in the US, where it's a good thing to give somebody a scholarship, of course. But when you do it in a country of extreme poverty and you do it for a girl, it is life-changing and transformative. So let me tell you about one young girl whom we supported through primary school. This is in South Sudan. And when she was in first grade, she was walking home from school with a bunch of her friends, about 20 or 30 of them from the classroom. And an airplane came overhead and started dropping bombs. This was a terrible war between Sudan and South Sudan regionally. Dozens of her classmates were killed directly by the bomb and then by the shrapnel. And she's a young child at this time. She's completely dazed. Some adults came to the area afterward and found her, and she couldn't get back to her family. Everything was disrupted. So someone knew about this school in South Sudan that took girls, and they airlifted her out. I don't know if it was the UN or who. She was too young to remember. But at age 6, she came to this school, which Mercy Beyond Borders, my nonprofit, is now the major supporter of. She went through school there, primary school. And while she was a student there, the school was bombed because the war had expanded. And she survived that also. And she never lost sight of the fact that she wanted to become a teacher. She was just determined that she was going to do, because there were no schools for girls anywhere, and where girls are thought to be worth less than cows, they are derided and pushed out if they attempt to go to school. So a single gender school is very important. So she went through that all-girl primary school. We gave her a scholarship to go to college, to high school and to college, and she became a teacher and returned to that school where she had gone to primary school to be a teacher. Then she went back to the Nuba Mountains to teach there and to see again the family that thought she was dead. She'd had no contact with her family, and an older sister had survived. Right now at that school, there are about 800 girls. It's become a magnet school because it's the only all-girl primary in the country of South Sudan. And it's because of that, the only place where girls are safe and can play. It's the only place in the country where you will see girls playing jacks or jump rope or soccer, because in the villages, they never play. They do manual labor from dawn till dusk, and they are literally the slaves of their brothers, even their younger brothers, because of the position of females in their society. And also because of the fact that girls are given away at puberty for a dowry of cattle. And so they are like the currency. They don't use much money. They prefer cows. So if a family, let's say, has 2 boys and 2 girls, the only way for the boys to marry, and remember boys are privileged, is if the family has a lot of cows, because they have to give cows as the bride price. So how does a family get cows? They sell their daughters in exchange for cattle. And then the cattle is used by the sons to marry. So it's a circular thing that traps the girls. And the only way out of that is education. So now that the word is out that there's a girls' school there, girls who are being trafficked into early marriage to elderly men. I mean, a 12-year-old girl being sold to a 65-year-old man because he has more cows to give. They're finding out about it and they're escaping at risk of their life, running. One of them I have on interview on a tape, 7 days she walked during the night so she wouldn't be seen through the forest, which is very dangerous. A lot of wild animals, till she found this school. She has lived at this school now for 7 years. She's an 8th grader now. And she lives with the guilt. She's happy to be in school. She's very bright. She's going to get a high school scholarship. But she lives with the guilt that her family then sold the next younger sibling instead of her.
Wow.
This is commonplace and horrific in this day and age. I understand you have to be careful that cultures have their things, but this needs to change because we are all connected now. And human trafficking is an international crime. So
Wow.
Wow. We're getting girls into school, and those that show promise, we're giving them scholarships to high school and then into university. And we now have 77 young women, the first educated girls in the entire country of South Sudan, 77 graduates from university.
Are they all staying in South Sudan, or have they moved?
They are all staying.
So they're feeding it right back into the system.
Yeah, and they're so happy to be doing it. I visit them. In fact, I'm going back to East Africa on middle of June. And we visit them at clinics and in classrooms. So this is going to take a long time. You don't change a culture overnight, and we're not going to change the culture. It's the girls who are educated that are going to change it, because we want a world where females are educated, connected, and influential, because they know what needs to be done. But without an education, you just don't have entree to a seat at the table. So I would invite your audience to go to the website and see Mercy Beyond Borders, MBB, mercybeyondborders.org, and see what we're doing. And certainly there's no argument that the best intervention you can make to eliminate extreme poverty is to educate the females in a family. All research has shown that. There's no controversy about it. It's just hard to do in certain places.
Right.
And that's where we've decided we need to work.
And I recall you sharing with me that a law was passed that girls had to have a primary school education in South Sudan, and that's fairly new.
Yes, it's fairly new. Since 2011, they became a country, and Western countries helped them build their constitution. So it's in their constitution that everyone has the right to an elementary education. But it's inked in the constitution, but it won't help a girl in a rural village get into a school. That's controlled by the men and the village chieftains. So we are out and about and using every imaginable way we can to convince people that an educated girl is worth more than a dozen cows. She'll be getting a job that will be lifetime income for your family. So,
I'd love to talk a little bit about, well, first of all, that was an incredible example of how important this work is. And I would love to talk more about, you talked about really having the convent as sort of the foundation, right? And there's convents all around the world, and that becomes the central connect point for you and for pulling in other people that want to do this work with you. But I'd love to zoom out for a moment and think about this from a leadership perspective. Is you had to set up a system, you had to set up an infrastructure to ensure that this work could happen and does happen on a daily basis. So I'd love for you to share with anybody watching or listening what that looks like. Like, what are the things that you needed to have as the leader? And then how did you set up this infrastructure and this system? And how do you ensure that it continues to work? I mean, and anybody watching or listening who's a business person is going to relate to this. But I'd love to hear it from your perspective.
Through a lot of mistakes, right?
Isn't that always the way?
Edison, what did he say? I haven't failed 1,000 times. I've learned 1,000 things that don't work. We started back in 2008. I founded Mercy Beyond Borders. And at that time, there had been a peace agreement that ended a 37-year civil war. And so the hundreds of thousands of women and families that had run out of South Sudan to escape the war into refugee camps were beginning to trickle back into South Sudan. There was peace, more or less. In 2011, they voted to secede from Sudan and become their own country of South Sudan. So then even more people came back. So I went over and just started listening to the women. And an interesting thing had happened to the women in the refugee camps of Uganda and Kenya and Ethiopia. All these camps are run by the UN, of course, huh? And in the camps, the refugees saw, much to their surprise, that females were in leadership positions, that females were teachers in the camp, were social workers, were administrators, were pilots even, were UN top personnel. And this were like, whoa, in our country, this would never happen. Women can't go to school. Women can't hold positions. Women don't have jobs outside the village. So now that peace was beginning to happen in their country, they went back to their villages and they said to me, when I went around and interviewed them, I said, what do you need to help rebuild after being away for decades in refugee camps? And they said, could you educate our daughters? I'm too old, but could you educate them? I said, yeah, I think I could do that. I was a high school teacher before I went into refugee work. And then some of them said, well, I'd love to start a business too if I had some wherewithal. Increasing access for girls to go to school, getting the girls who were in school, even in primary school, to be on the radio and talk about how good it was and how it was benefiting everybody. We had a radio show every Saturday. But then the war broke out again, and the women went back into the refugee camps. It was in 2015, so we followed them there. So now we're also working in the refugee camps. And what kind of infrastructure? You hire local people who know the languages, who know the culture, and wherever possible, you hire females. In South Sudan, we actually had to have a man as our country director because nobody would listen to a woman.
Right.
And it just is like impossible. You know, you go to the office to get your registration papers signed and they just look at you and say, well, it looks like the paperwork is pretty good here. We just need one more thing. Come back tomorrow. And I know a guy actually who was the head of another nonprofit who went 101 times to get the paperwork signed off.
And they're delaying it just for the sake of delaying it, or are they expecting?
Or they want waiting a bribe.
And they're waiting for you to just decide on how much.
Whereas a woman who wouldn't even get an appointment to get in the door. So, so we do have some men on our staff, and they're wonderful people, but mostly women, because they know the situation of women and they know what will change it. So we don't own any schools. We don't build schools. We invest in the human capital. So we found this little school that was, at the time we started, it was just, I don't know, maybe 100 girls under a couple of trees with a few teachers having a blackboard leaning against the tree and teaching outdoors, you know. Now, as I said, it's become a magnet school. It's got 800 girls because we invested in that struggling school. It's not my school. It's not MBB's school. We don't care about being big man in Africa, you know.
Right.
We didn't put our name on the buildings. We just are investing in the girls, paying for a school nurse to be on campus, building a library for this school, putting in a computer lab. I'm sure we have the only 8-year-olds who can type 70 words a minute in the whole country. And we do. Because by putting in that enrichment, the government controls the curriculum, the government appoints the teachers, the government pays them miserable salaries when it pays them at all. But we can enhance it, you know, by providing, building a dorm and a feeding program and this kind of thing so that people want to be there. And it's stunning to me that just last week, the national exams came out for all 8th graders. There are 10 states in South Sudan, so we're in a big state called Eastern Equatoria, That's where the school is. The grades came out for all 3,471 boys and girls in that school who were 8th graders, and not in that school, in that state.
Yeah.
Most of them boys, of course, because there aren't that many girls in school as far as the 8th grade. Of the top 10 scorers in the entire state, 5 were from the school that Mercy Beyond Borders supports.
Wow. Of
And
course.
The top 2, first place in the state, were from that school.
Wow.
Now,
Wow.
to my
How
knowledge,
did that
this is the
feel?
first time that a girl, rather than a boy, has ever been at the top. And
So
to have
how did
5
that
out of the
feel
top
for
10,
you? How did that feel for you? And then what was the reaction?
They are so proud, and I am so proud. And I'm telling all our donors, you should be proud because you're making this happen.
Wow.
I still get chills when I think about it because boys have all the privilege, and they go to school and they just can do their homework. Girls go to school, and if they're not boarders, they have to go back and do all the chores till midnight, which is why we give them a solar lamp so they can study into the wee hours, because they have to do all the domestic work in addition, all the laundry, all the hauling of water, all the cooking, in addition to being, a 4th grader or a 6th grader or whatever. So that's the foundation, and that's what we want to replicate everywhere. We replicated it also in Haiti, in the mountains of Haiti. And Haiti's in a death spiral right now with 50% inflation, gangs ruling the streets. We had to pull out one of our U.S. workers, so everybody there now is Haitian-born. They can't leave. Very dangerous. But you asked about infrastructure. You go there, you talk to people, you find out what would help them. You set up a structure, you hire people to begin it, and you entrust them to change it, adjust it, design, expand, because they know best, right? I'm 10,000 miles away.
How does the government interpret and work with the system you're creating? Are they receptive? Are they challenging?
Well, every time I visit, I use South Sudan as an example, but it's also true in the refugee camps. Young men will come up to me and say, "Hey, I hear you're giving away scholarships to girls. I want one." I say, "Okay, let's make a deal. I will give you a scholarship, presuming you have the academic talent, as soon as all the females in your village get as much education as you've had and are on a level playing field." And they just stare daggers at me for a minute or two, and then they laugh and walk away because they know that's not going to happen in his lifetime. But we're here for the long haul, and we are going to see that equality happen. I think we forget how recent it is, even in the United States, that women have had to vote. And of course, we're aware there's still a glass ceiling here. So if we have it here, it's going to be 1,000 times worse in these other countries. But they're on the right path. And if we can get enough resources, we know it's working. We're still very small. We have only about 25 staff. Yeah, we're in 5 countries. 6 if you count the U.S., just where our headquarters are.
And you have 1,500 in primary. You said
two primary schools, one in Haiti and one in South Sudan, all girl. Yeah. So
and then how many in high school?
Right now, I think it's 259, something like that.
And then how many at the university level?
Around 150.
Wow.
And that's, of course, is more expensive.
Countries?
Sorry?
Both countries, or is that just South Sudan?
Well, we started 15 years ago in South Sudan, and it was only several years later that we started in Haiti. So it's only the last 4 years that we've had anybody finish high school in Haiti. So we're way behind. We have 9 right now in university in Haiti. But that's not because we don't want more. It's because high school is 7 years long in Haiti. They're on the French model.
Oh, okay.
So it goes up to what we would call junior college. And then, so we're just now getting cohorts that can be eligible for university. So the only thing stopping me from doing more is resources. expanding our donor base and all of that. But
Okay.
that's why I'm so happy to be on a podcast. It's interesting to me that wherever I've spoken about this or met people, they become donors because they think like this is amazing, but nobody knows about us.
Right.
And
And
I'm hoping that will change.
Well, something that you said to me really struck a chord too. Is that I'm sure you get a lot of people that are asking you, what about United States problems, and
Mm-hmm.
how about we work on our own infrastructure? And I loved your response. There is no over there. It's better
Yeah.
for all of us that we educate, and the world is becoming smaller and smaller,
Mm-hmm.
and it's good for everyone that we're doing
Yeah.
this work outside the US. And I just wanted to reflect that back. I think that's just
Yeah.
a
Thanks for
really
reminding
important.
me. I really am convinced of it. It's not just like a theory I have. I'm very convinced of it, but I understand why Americans are not. We're very insulated from the world. We have oceans on two sides. We're a friendly neighbor in Canada that's developed nation. And so all our focus is on building a wall on the southern border to protect us. First of all, I think the whole protection thing is wrong, as I explained earlier, but it's very evident that the problems that exist in some of these tumultuous places, whether it be terrorism or disease, Ebola started near the refugee camps in Uganda years ago, or political instability, or migration. All of these things that we consider very serious problems don't honor borders, right? It may have been safe to be an American 100 years ago, but now we've got airplanes. And I mean, a flea that's got bubonic plague on it can jump on an airplane or hide in a suitcase, and suddenly it's anywhere else in the world. We saw that with COVID. We'll see it again with the next pandemic. So what is going to keep America safe is not really building up walls here and bigger barns for our wealth, but helping these dangerous places to develop so that they're not so dangerous anymore.
Right.
So that they have hygiene, so they have good health care, so they have a future for people, and people don't get so frustrated that they become terrorists.
Right.
I mean, the solution to keeping us safe and prosperous is to share what we have with others so that they don't feel a need to migrate. The first refugee camp I ever worked in was on the Mekong River between Thailand and Laos for Laotian refugees, after the CIA had been in Laos during the Vietnam War for years and years and years. And those who had cooperated with the U.S. then, when Vietnam and Laos fell to the communists, were in great danger. So there were a lot of refugees coming over into Thailand. And I remember this young man, Laotian, who had swum across the Mekong and now was in this refugee camp. He said to me, "Sister, who would ever want to leave the country of their birth?" And I thought, oh, a lot of people, because you would think everybody's wanting to come to America. He didn't want to go. He wanted to go back to Laos, but you only leave when things are too terrible, when you can't feed your children, when you can't find a job, when your ethnicity or religion is so verboten, where you live, that you've got to escape. Yeah, there are some people that just want to have a better life and come to America, but most of the migrants are not people who want to leave. That's been my experience. I've been doing refugee work for 40 years. They miss their homeland. They would go back if they could, and they do. 99.5% of refugees never come to a developed country, which would be Canada, the US, or Australia primarily, and a few to the Nordic countries. 99.5% stay in the refugee camps for 20, 30, 40 years, or go back to their country if it improves a little. So we may think we're deluged with all these people, but in fact, we're going to be very sorry if they stop coming, because we are an aging society. We need younger people. We need Social Security people, paying into it and all that. So the countries that have locked themselves out of migrants because they want a pure culture, Japan, Germany, places like that, are now having real economic questions about their future because of their aging demographic. That's another story. But there really is no over there anymore.
Right.
So whatever we can each do in some small way to make those countries stronger and better and more peaceful ultimately helps everybody else.
One other thing that I wanted to touch on relating to having these local teams supporting the mission and really being a part of this every day. You have what I'll just call wraparound services around these girls to ensure that they go to school. And I'd love for you to share some of the challenges that they face that could prevent them from going to school.
We use what's called a case management model. So we never just give a scholarship to somebody and say, goodbye, be well, because it's really hard to do it on your own and to be well when you're coming from a position where your own parents tell you you're not even a human being. You're just lower than the cows and you're here so we can sell you, so that education is not just about new subjects you learn in school, but it's learning about your own dignity and agency. What happens is a parent gets sick and the girl feels so responsible to take care of the younger siblings that they'll drop out of school to do that, as much as it kills them. Or they get malaria. Let's say they're in high school on one of our scholarships. They get malaria and they're out of school for 3 weeks. They can never catch up without the services. We'll link them with a mentor, right? To catch up what you missed, because they don't all have textbooks. There might be one textbook for the classroom, and that kind of thing. So, or the parents will come and say, with the AK-47 in hand, they come back to the high school and say, we've found a husband for you. We're going to take you back to your village. And we can intervene. We can talk them down sometimes, not always. So the case management services by which we, hike in Haiti 4 hours into the mountains to meet the family and get them on our side, our side being the side of education and development for girls, that this daughter of yours has potential. She's really smart. Let her stay in school till she finishes high school. And then we'll make another visit and say, let her go to college. We have 2 girls now in medical school in Haiti.
Wow.
Who never could have gone that far. And Haiti has one of the worst medical statistics in the world. So they could use 2 more doctors, So we're not changing the world overnight, but we're bringing 50% of the human capital of these countries is not being utilized. The girls are not growing and contributing and giving back because they're not educated. So it's a long project, going to be generations.
Right.
And I want to get, I want 20 million in the bank so that when I die, this continues.
Right.
And I know there's people who can give that and not even miss it.
Right.
It's the wealth in this country is staggering. So it's just how to get people to see what's happening. And on our website, you can see stories and photos and a couple of videos of what we're doing. But my message to folks who are listening is yes, do something good locally every year and do something good internationally every year. It doesn't have to be Mercy Beyond Borders, but engage at both levels.
I wanted to get into also some of the mentors and people that have inspired and helped you along this journey, but I have to pause and get you to share the Dalai Lama connection. So please tell us that story.
Well, he's always been one of my heroes because he says my religion is compassion. And that rings so true for me. I do happen to be a Catholic nun, but I'm really sometimes I think I'm really a Quaker. I'm not into the structure or the hierarchy or any of that. I am into the message of Jesus and the message of the Dalai Lama and the message of Gandhi. I think these people are my heroes. So one day, the Dalai Lama came to San Jose, where my office is, and he or his minions, I don't know, picked a group of people to be honored. He called them the unsung heroes of compassion. Well, at the time I was running a refugee welcome and resettlement program. And so I got on his list, his magic list, and I was one of the people invited to this event. It was really wonderful because he's a refugee from Tibet, and I've spent my life pretty much working with displaced people, mostly refugees. So it was a really special day for me. And at one point during the event, each of us was called up to the stage and had a chance to be hugged by the Dalai Lama. It was wonderful. And the whole day was, it's just very special. But I don't want to talk about that day. I want to talk about what happened the next day. After my morning prayers, I always read the newspaper. And there on page 1 is a picture of the Dalai Lama and I embracing. And it's in color, no less. I mean, the Mercury News never does anything in color, but I was really excited. It's like, oh, this is my 15 minutes of fame, you know. And I knew my mother would be excited because she liked it when her kids succeed at something, you know. So I then finished my breakfast and I'm driving to work. It's about a half-hour drive. And I stopped to get gas. I'm thinking about the Dalai Lama. I'm not at all present to what I'm doing. I'm just thinking what a wonderful day this was, blah, blah, blah. I finish getting the gas and I start to drive off onto the street, and I hear the most horrible sound you can ever hear when you are driving out of a gas station. It's this metallic screeching like this.
Yeah.
And I look in the rearview mirror and you can guess what happened. I had been so distracted, I had forgotten to take the hose out of my vehicle. So it is on this rubbery thing and it's spewing gasoline all around, and I'm horrified. It's the only time I've ever done something so stupid, you know. So it shut itself off automatically, I guess, but there was puddled gasoline everywhere. And I'm thinking, oh, this is so stupid. So I reach into the vehicle and get my purse. I figure I'm going to have to get my insurance card and pay for this or whatever. And as I'm doing this, I see somebody, a little man, maybe 5'2", running out of the booth where you pay. And he's running straight toward me, and he is not looking happy. He's running across the concrete, and he goes like this. What in the world? It's you. And he bows down. He's all the way down. And I'm thinking, what is happening here? So he reaches me and he says, it's you. He bows again. And I think, what is happening? And it turns out this guy was reading the paper.
Oh my goodness.
I was wearing the same jacket, which was had an interesting pattern on it. It was noticeable. And he was from Tibet.
Oh my goodness.
Can you believe that? Okay.
That was like a moment of divinity right there.
Right there. So I say to him, I am so sorry. I am so sorry of this mess I have created. What do I need to do? Can I pay you for this? He says, oh, no. It is an honor that you come to my place of work. And I'm like, I'm not getting it. So I say to him again, here's my card. Here's what are we going to do about this? And he said, no. One thing only. May I touch you? And so I said, of course. So he gives me a big hug. And then it clicked. The man is Tibetan. He believes the Dalai Lama is the incarnation of the divine. He himself is a lowly clerk at a gas station who has never dreamed of ever meeting the Dalai Lama in person. But he knew from the photo that not only had I met the Dalai Lama had given me the blessing cloth and embraced me. So in his mind, if he could just touch me, through me, he could touch the Dalai Lama and be blessed.
Wow. What a great story.
I was so staggered
Yeah.
by that. And I just have never forgotten it, because it's true for all of us, not about the Dalai Lama, but that we reach the divine through one another. It's not when we're kneeling in some chapel somewhere, usually, although that's where we go thinking it will happen. It happens when we open ourselves to one another. And since I'm a follower of Jesus, it's very clear in the Gospels that he said he would be hiding in the least of our brethren. And that whatever we did to the least, meaning the oppressed, the forgotten, the migrant, the refugee, the homeless, the addict, the whatever, if we touched those people, we would be closer to the divine. I mean, it's just, it's kind of a ground rule for me.
Yeah.
It's not just a theory, it really happens.
Yeah.
And that's why, I can truthfully say to people, I've been working for more than 40 years with refugees and migrants, all of them strangers, and I have been so enriched and so blessed. And once or twice I've been crossed up, scammed, but the vast majority is blessing.
The way I experience you in this work is not only are you giving hope and meaning, but a sense of purpose, a sense of love, and you're experiencing in return so much love and compassion and having an impact too. Just some of the
I hope so.
Some of the things you were just previously sharing. And you said that you really admire the Dalai Lama and Gandhi. Who are those people in your life that you go to? They're your mentor. They're your source of support and motivation. Are they the same people, or do you have a different group that you go to when you're like, all right, I need inspiration. Okay, I need motivation to keep this work going? What does your circle look like?
People probably don't believe this, but most nuns are very highly educated. I live with a sister who's not only a hospital CEO, but was CEO of a consortium of hospitals that had 100, she's on the board now, 100 hospitals in it. These people know about management. They know about governance. They know about structures. They know about problems. When there's embezzlement or this or that, they've been there, they've done that. I get a lot of mentoring from the people I know in community. Then I have a board of directors that's very, very, very savvy. One is the manager of global risk at Capital Group, which is a humongous asset management company like BlackRock, and he's funny. He says I shouldn't argue with people carrying machetes and AK-47s. Like, why not? They're in my way, I want their daughters to go to school. He said, because we don't have a succession plan yet.
Oh my goodness.
But I would say I learn from books. I learn from people. I learn from webinars, at least 2 a week. I want to establish us concretely, not necessarily in hundreds of countries, but to go deep with the people, the women and girls we work with. Because if there's one thing I learned from Gandhi, it's that transactional relationships are superficial. But if you go deep with people, it's transformational, not transactional. And that's
a bumper sticker right there. That is beautiful.
Yeah.
Which really leads me to my last question. I want you to think, okay, Mercy Beyond Borders, it's 2030.
It's 2030.
Fill in the blank.
We as Americans have switched from a mantra of stranger is danger to a belief that strangers bring blessings. So we're not so afraid anymore, and we're interacting more. And instead of the cautious foreign student living in my house for a semester, which even now is considered outre, it's everybody is welcome. And we're beyond tribalism, whether it's in Congress or in Africa, right? Everybody's got their tribes. And the reason I called Mercy Beyond Borders with that name is because we are all stuck behind various kinds of borders and fearful of what lies beyond them. So it's not just geographic, it's psychological, it's ethnic, it's racial, it's caste systems of all sorts. It's, glass ceilings. We've got to move beyond all the borders that keep us from being the best human beings we can be, and connected and caring and developing toward peace.
God, that's such a gorgeous way to end this conversation.
Well, let me just say, there's a quote I use at the bottom of my emails that is from a fellow humanitarian named Jan Elias, and he works at the UN. And he said, without passion, nothing happens. But without compassion, the wrong things happen.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people doing things around the world, but for money or fame or power or land or whatever. Let's make compassion our guiding star for leadership. And take the risks we need to take to create real community wherever we are, in our families, in our communities, in our schools, in our global environment.
Even
we're not going to
let's
survive
just
as
start
a
using the word more often. If we can just start using the word more often, use compassion more often.
Yeah.
Think of compassion, operate from a place of compassion. I am so grateful that you are doing this work in the world, that you came here to share your gifts, your heart, your story.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Warriors at Work show. If you are interested in learning more about what we do at the Warriors at Work show and platform, be sure to go over to my website, Jeannie Coomber, and subscribe to my monthly Warrior Playbook newsletter. I share everything that I'm up to month by month, as well as some lessons and insights that I've learned. I'm also interested in hearing any feedback you have about this conversation or future topics. So reach out to me directly on jc@jeanniecoomber.com or on LinkedIn. Be sure to tell your friends and your colleagues about this Warriors at Work conversation. Subscribe, review, and rate us. It's the best way to get this message out into the world. Be well.